Today we're going to talk about polar bears and climate change. One thing that people have to understand about polar bears is that they have evolved to the chilly northern climate in different ways than other bears around the world. Their physical makeup is specifically designed for life in the Arctic. These characteristics include their heavily furred bodies and ability to enter a fasting state at any time of the year. Even their diet is specifically suited for Arctic life. Sea ice is completely essential for polar bears to hunt their only prey, seals that live in the waters. Polar bears hunt the seals by waiting for them to surface through holes that the seals have created in the ice to breathe, called aglis. Polar bears use these holes as a sort of trap to grab the seals when they surface. But polar bears realize that they can't just rely on breathing holes and these opportunities to catch their prey. So they also take advantage of seals that are resting on the sea ice. They do this by memorizing seal sleep rhythms. Polar bears will sneak up on these seals when they're sleeping and then pounce when they're within 20 feet of the seal. All of the methods that polar bears use to hunt these seals require the sea ice. So having established that the Arctic climate, and specifically the sea ice, is essential for a polar bear's way of life, how does this all relate to polar bears becoming endangered? Climate change is leading to the melting of ice, a phenomenon I will discuss later. When the sea ice disappears for long periods of time, polar bears do not have enough time to hunt and are forced to fast. In fact, polar bears spend the longest time fasting out of any mammal. This time is between 180 and 186 days. The effects of an increase in the fasting period are reflected in the decrease in cub survival rates and a decrease in the weight and skull size of adult polar bears. So what do polar bears do when they can't hunt seals? If you were a polar bear living in the Arctic with no living things in sight except for other starving polar bears, what would you do? When polar bears are not able to hunt their own prey, their only prey, they must take drastic measures. Polar bear cannibalism has always occurred, though in the past it's been very rare. Now, the decrease in sea ice has led to an increase in polar bear cannibalism. Polar bears are solitary mammals who require between 50,000 and 350,000 square miles of ice to live on. And I'm sure most of you had no idea exactly how big 50,000 to 350,000 square kilometers really is. Well, 50,000 square kilometers is about the size of New York State, and 350,000 square kilometers is about the size of Texas. And that's a lot of land for one solitary polar bear to live on. So how do polar bears reproduce if they don't travel as families? While male polar bears travel alone, female polar bears do travel with their cubs. However, polar bears have one of the slowest reproductive rates for any mammals. Female polar bears typically produce only 2 cubs a litter and then raise them for 2 years before the cubs are able to live on their own. This is a huge factor in understanding why the sea ice is so important for polar bears to live on. When polar bears become threatened, the entire Arctic food cycle becomes imbalanced. Polar bears are the apex predator, the head of its food chain. Polar bears eat seals, and seals eat fish, and the fish eat algae. So while a polar bear may not directly feed on algae, it is just as reliant on the algae as it is on a seal. When there are no polar bears to eat seals, there are more seals to eat the fish, and there are fewer fish to eat the algae. So as you can see, this problem is a whole lot bigger than just one polar bear. To sum it all up, members of an ecosystem are interdependent, which means that if one organism is threatened, the whole cycle goes out of whack. So I mentioned before that the decrease in sea ice is due to climate change or global warming. But what exactly is global warming? Global warming is an accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases mainly consist of 2 very dangerous gases, carbon dioxide and methane, both of which can be produced through human activities such as burning fossil fuels for energy. These gases are dangerous because they trap heat from the sun in the atmosphere. And this buildup of heat leads to the melting of the sea ice that polar bears live and hunt on. In fact, if greenhouse gases continue to accumulate in the atmosphere, we'll have an almost entirely ice-free Arctic summer by 2040. So what can we do to solve this problem? Unfortunately, humans' reliance on fossil fuels has made it too difficult to completely reverse climate change that's already occurred to save the polar bear species. However, if we take action now, we can extend polar bears' existence and try to protect the Arctic ecosystem. And this doesn't mean that it's too late for the world as a whole to recover from the effects of global warming. There are many organizations like the World Wildlife Fund that focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But you can take more effective measures by recycling, biking more often instead of taking a car, and eating less meat and buying local foods. Even these simple measures can help save our planet and prevent other species from endangerment, such as like the polar bear. The Earth needs our help. We made this mess, and it's our responsibility to clean it up.
To donate to the cause, you can go to the World Wildlife Fund website, wwf.org. Even a small donation of $10 a month can go a long way in the quest to save polar bears and our planet. Plus, you can choose a perk to go with your donation. Simply put your shipping address on the bottom of the form.
Thank you. We hope that more and more people in the future join the cause for polar bear conservation.